1-0 at the Amex yesterday, which was a very emotional game for the first Spurs players, the Spurs coaching staff, and especially Antonio Conte and Fabio Paratici. Before we get into the game, let's talk about the reception that the Spurs fans gave to the team, to Conte, the tributes that were going out to Ventrone. Obviously, you were there yesterday. From the outside, from watching it on TV and seeing all the clips, it looked like really emotional time. Antonio Conte, during the minute's applause, was visibly crying. I mean, it seemed like he kind of didn't want to be there yesterday, Conte, which was kind of what you kind of expect from someone that was so close to Ventrone, but he seemed to have such an influence on that team, and you could see that yesterday. But what was it like being from in the stands yesterday? Yeah,
it was really heartfelt and very emotional being there. I think Spurs fans did really well bringing the Italian flags to the stadium and gave a really nice tribute to Gian, and they were singing Gian, Piero, who's one of our own, during the 90 minutes as well. You could see how much it meant to everyone, and I think it was such a shock. You know, Conte said after the game that the last time he spoke to him was Thursday night, and he had no idea that after that time that was going to be the last time he spoke to him. And he said Gian was worried about missing training. He said he was feeling a bit ill, but he was worried he was going to miss training, and he wanted to come in, but Conte said told him to stay home, and that was that. And it's incredible what an impact he's made. We did a piece about him,
the Marine.
I don't know if it was when he first joined or during the summer.
It was just after that grueling session that they put him through in Korea. When they were doing multiple laps of the pitch, and then we found that article of he had that nickname called the Marine.
And he had his sayings, and I can't remember that right now, but he clearly had a massive impact, and he was clearly very good at his job, because every team that is under him was always one of the fittest teams in the division whenever he was there. So I think all the players have been absolutely glowing in their tributes to Gian and how much of an impact he's made on their lives in such a short space of time. And I think all that emotion was pouring out onto the stadium yesterday. It was a really nice touch during the minute applause just before the game. As you say, Conte was in tears during that, and I think everyone was feeling quite emotional yesterday. And I think the team did him proud with how the fight they showed, and getting all 3 points. And I think you saw after the game, Harry Kane looked like he had a tear in his eye when he was doing his interview. And I think Lloris bring the shirt around and with his name on the back, you saw that it means a lot to everyone, and he won't be forgotten anytime soon. And I think it was a really fitting tribute. Yeah,
absolutely spot on. And the team definitely provided for him yesterday. That 3 points was definitely for Gian Piero. But let's go on to the game. Conte starts with the 3-5-2. Finally, how everyone's been calling for it, he finally goes for it. And I think it was a really good game for him to start it with, because it works from the off. You saw from the first minute of the game, Spurs actually came out the blocks really fast. We were super aggressive. We were winning the ball really high up the pitch. Bissouma was just sitting, and he was letting the midfield duo of Højbjerg and Bentancur just really go for the throats of Brighton. And they were both absolutely imperious in that first 20-25 minutes, literally like a bull in a china shop, running up the pitch, running down the pitch, winning the ball high up the pitch. Højbjerg was playing these really nice dinking balls over the top time and time again. The wing backs as well were playing really well. Doherty in the first opening 20 minutes had a couple of chances to really stamp our authority over the game. There was that one where he could have squared it to Sessegnon, and the defender just got there just before him, and there was another one at the back post where he could have hit it in the back of the net, but it went over the bar. So how did you assess the first 20 minutes? Because I thought it was probably our best 20-25 minutes of the season.
Yeah, De Zerbi said after the game that in the third, he specifically pointed out those opening exchanges, saying that he expected Tottenham to go with a 3-4-3, and he actually surprised him that Spurs went with a 3-5-2, and he wasn't expecting it, and he didn't plan for that. And he said for the first 20 minutes, I made a mistake, and we hadn't planned for how Tottenham were going to build up. And I think what I noticed was definitely the pressing structure was so much more efficient, because not only were we winning the ball more, we were winning the ball in higher areas. We weren't getting forced back as much as we were maybe when we were playing the 3-4-3. We weren't as easy to play through. And yes, the wing backs maybe had a bit less support from out wide from the likes of Richarlison and Son tracking back, but they had the support from inside from Højbjerg, Bentancur and Bissouma going out wide to help them. They couldn't really get the ball to McAllister and Caicedo in the centre. It was pretty much impossible to get the ball to him, because the three in the middle were just absolutely closing them down very, very quickly, and it was leading to situations where we were hurting them and winning the ball in good areas. And when we did have the ball, look, we still need to do a bit better when it comes to play, like keeping possession and stuff, but I think it was much easier for us to play down the middle than it has been. And out wide, we had a couple of opportunities, as you say. Session was doing okay. So I think what the main thing for me, what it was doing is really help break up the opposition's build up and their football they were playing. That was the main thing that was happening with the 3-5-2, and that was really positive, because Brighton, if you give them too much time and space, they're a very good footballing side. So the fact that we restricted them to how we did was very impressive. So I was very happy with that, and I think it was going. It was pretty much going really well for the first 20 minutes. We got the goal. What was that? What was in the first 20 minutes?
Yeah, it was about 20-25 minutes in, and it was a lovely. Well, it comes from another corner, by the way. But it comes out, Højbjerg with a lovely dink over the top, like I was talking about before. Sonny, lovely shift inside or just on the outside, and then plays a nice, I don't know if it was a shot or a cross, but it ended up on Harry Kane's head and nicks it in, and it goes 1-0 to Spurs, and it was a deserved lead as well. It
was a clever header as well by Kane. At the time, it was definitely deserved. It looked like the goal was coming at that point, and we got it. And then after we got the goal, I think maybe Deserving might have made a few tactical tweaks, because Brighton did start to get back into it. Welbeck was starting to threaten. He was a bit of a problem for us throughout the game, Danny Welbeck. Trossard was getting more involved in the game, and there were periods where they were on top without really always being kept at arm's length, I felt. I can't remember, apart from that, I think they had a header which went just over or hit the top of the net.
There was that one, there was another one, I'm not sure if it was actually in the first half or the second half, but it was kind of a pop shot from about 20 yards, but nobody closed him down, and it could have gone...
That was in the first half from Welbeck.
That was it. Was it Welbeck?
Yeah, the left-footed shot from the left-hand side.
Yeah, and it just kind of went just past the post, and like that could have been a dangerous position, but still, like they didn't hurt us too much. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, there was that one that was near the late in the game where Session gives it away on the edge of the box, and Welbeck drags it wide. But like, if any of those goals go in, you were saying those are unbelievable finishes from Welbeck. So like these again, it just goes again a bit similar to other games where conceded a lot of shots, but as you said, the XG of the shot were probably very low, and again, it was probably very low in yesterday's game. So I think we like, considering the amount of trouble Brighton have given very good teams this season going forward, to restrict them as much as we did and hold strong like we did was very impressive.
But did I read that that they actually had a higher XG than us yesterday?
They had a higher XG because they had more shots. It was, as I said, XG per shot was low,
right?
But because they built up a lot of shots, they ended up having a higher XG. So I think they did have a higher XG in the end. But I think we were the ones creating the better chances.
So, I mean, like, first 20-25 minutes, we were, like, so dominant. Like, the most dominant probably I've seen us this season was who, like, had, like, 60% possession as well. But then by the end of the game, we again had about 44% possession, I think it was, by the end of the game. Second half starts, Brighton come out the traps like they finished the first half. And they were peppering, like huffing and puffing, but without really blowing our house down. With about 20 minutes to go, Spurs change it up to 3-4-3. And I felt like we were creating a few more chances after that, but then round the back, I mean, it was kind of like left it open on both sides of the pitch, didn't it?
Yeah, I think we lost that element of control in the 3-4-3. We brought on Richarlison for Bissouma, I think, whether because he had a yellow or maybe he was getting tired or whatever it was. And for that, I think it was only for like a 15-minute period, and then we brought Ollie Skip on. But I thought for that period we were definitely more open. I wasn't really that happy with the control we've given up. I felt like it was much more easy to play through us than it was when we were playing in the 3-5-2. And I think maybe he thought if we go to a 3-4-3 with Brighton committing men forward, that there'll be loads of space on the counter for the likes of Richarlison, and I think Perisic at that time was playing left wing, for them to really run into. But didn't quite work out like that. I felt like what happened was we were just giving too much control to Brighton, and they looked like they were had a good chance of getting back in the game. And so he took off. I think it was Son, put Perisic, put Skip on. Ended up going back to 3 in the middle, and I think we saw out the game fairly comfortably after that. And I think for the last remaining 5 minutes, it wasn't backs against the wall kind of stuff. We actually had to just got to the corner. We were able to keep the ball in Brighton's half, and it was a good professional performance.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking in the last 15-20 minutes of the game, this has got 1-1 written all over it.
You always will.
Because exactly, and I mean, I was really nervous on the watch along for the last 10-15 minutes, because I've just seen it all before. You know what I mean? I've seen this show before, but credit to the lads. They stuck in, they dug deep, and they got the 3 points off the back of it. A couple of individual displays. First, I want to talk about the Viking, Piero. I mean, he was my man of the match by a landslide. I thought he was absolutely sensational yesterday. Not only his defensive work, but going forward as well. I think Bissouma, sitting for us yesterday, really gave him and Bentancur really the license to get up and down the pitch as much as they can. They were playing almost like 2 number 8s yesterday, Bentancur and Højbjerg, and the amount of times Højbjerg was dinking it over the top, creating chances for us, winning the ball back in the middle of the park, interceptions. I mean, he was a man on a mission yesterday, and you could see he really wanted to do it for Antonio yesterday, and in the name of Ventrone. And you saw at the end of the game, Conte was going up to all the players and giving them hugs, but when he went up to Højbjerg, the hug he gave Højbjerg was like no hug that he ever gave yesterday. It was unbelievable, and that's exactly why, because he was absolutely sensational yesterday.
Yeah, we've been banging on about Højbjerg for a while now with the level of consistency to his displays. I think it's been pretty astounding, the consistency he's had this season and for the last few months. I think he's been not only one of the most consistent midfielders for Tottenham, but in the Premier League at the moment. He's playing that well, going forward and at the back, and he's really starting to make a difference on both ends of the pitch, and that's beautiful to see. When you go on to Bentancur, it was nice for him, nice to see him as well get forward a bit more. He had a really nice shot, didn't he, from 25 yards, which forced Sanchez into a save. And it's nice to see him have that confidence to take some shots, because, a lot of the time when he gets in those kind of positions, he gives off the responsibility to someone else.
You could probably count on one hand how many shots he's taken for Spurs.
But he clearly has a good shot on him. He's got good technique, and one of the only times that he did go through 1-on-1 and score against Leicester, it was a good finish as well. Like, this guy has quality, but he needs more. I don't know whether it's belief in himself or he needs more instruction to get him to shoot more and maybe be more offensive. But whenever I've seen him go forward and actually try something offensive, and more often than not, he looks dangerous and looks good.
The thing is about Bentancur, usually in the 3-4-3, he doesn't have enough freedom to go as forward as he did yesterday and really strut his stuff. And I felt like he kind of had the shackles off him yesterday a little bit with that extra man in midfield, and he was given the license to roam, go forward, go back, and it really, I think, played into his game, and you really saw like different attributes maybe that we haven't seen consistently from Bentancur week in, week out.
Yeah, and I think having Bissouma there definitely helped. I think being in the 3, I think we saw it in that Leicester game as well. The moment we moved to a 3, he was getting a lot more involved in the attacks, and that's something that we've been calling ever since he signed, pretty much. I think that's also something that Graham Mbappe, the Juventus fan, was saying, that he doesn't take responsibility enough in those when the ball's in the final third and when the team's going forward, and he always kind of plays it safe and just tries to keep the ball. Yeah. But we've seen it that he's got good technique, he's got really good ability. So I want to see more of that from him, and I think it's easier for him when we do go in a 3 for him to show that side of his game. And I think yesterday was and I don't think, look, he was, I'm not saying he was like a Eriksen regen or anything like that, but he was much more positive, and like, because we literally do go through games where he never does a through ball, he never does a pass the whole game. So even if he does it a few times a game, I want to see it every game, just at least a few moments, because he has the ability.
Absolutely. And the third midfielder in is Bissouma, got his second start of the season finally. But just like his first start, gets an early booking and kind of stifled him, didn't it, for the remainder of the game. But even though it stifled him, I thought he walked that tightrope really well yesterday. And he kind of sat there and just let Højbjerg and Bentancur really strut their stuff.
Yeah, and even him, when he was playing, when he had the opportunity to play some quick forward passes, he was actually doing it really well. I remember there was one moment, the moment where Kane plays through Son and Lewis Dunn got a last minute tackle in and Son was through 1-on-1.
Yeah.
That was all led
when
because
Kane played it like round the back.
Yeah, that was all led because Bissouma gets the ball in the middle of the park and plays a really quick ball into Harry Kane, very accurate into space, and Kane had a bit of time to pick Son out, and we nearly got a goal from it. And there are a few moments like that where Bissouma was actually doing really well, but I think his passing was pretty good when it was quick. He didn't have too many like long pings across the pitch and stuff like that, but he definitely his quick passing was good. He didn't have I think he was the deepest out of the midfielders, so he didn't have too many opportunities to drive the ball forward into space, which we've seen at Brighton. That was one of his main strengths, and I don't think we've seen that and nowhere near enough in a Spurs show, that dribbling ability or that powerful running ability that he has. Haven't seen that, but I think we created a good solid base for the team to press, and I think he obviously gave Højbjerg and Bentancur the confidence to get further up the pitch, not just on the ball but pressing off the ball as well. They knew Bissouma was behind them, so they could be a bit more intense, and that allowed us to win the ball higher up the pitch and be in a bit better positions there as well. And I think again, it wasn't like maybe the Bissouma again that we've seen last season. It's
better than against West Ham, though. That's for sure.
I think it was better, but he had more protection. So,
yeah.
It was easier to be better, but he was better, and that was positive.
It's frustrating though that keeps getting these early bookings when he starts.
Yeah, that wouldn't have helped. But I still think. Maybe took some aggression out of his game because he couldn't go a bit too full throttle in case he gets another yellow. But
I think he did make a challenge late in the first half that I thought maybe he could have been another yellow card, but wasn't at the end of the day, luckily.
Yeah, 100%. So that was okay. But I think in general, those three worked quite well together.
Really well.
And what I would say is as well, if we play a Liverpool or something like that, or a Man City, and having those three, I think that might be something that to seriously consider for Conte, because those three can eat up so much ground, and actually when they do play the ball forward quickly, they're all pretty good at it. They're not poor on the ball like some other defensive midfielders.
I really wish we played this 3-5-2 against Arsenal, man. I just really wish we did that, but yeah, it's gone now. It is what it is. A couple of other players, Cuti Romero, I thought he's getting back to his best now. We've been saying consistently now that he doesn't look the same player. Against Frankfurt was a step in the right direction. I think yesterday he was brilliant once again, and he kept bombing it up the field, played a really nice ball to Harry Kane to put him through on goal where Kane usually gobbles those up for fun, but he just screwed it wide once again. I mean, there's something a bit off with Harry Kane's finishing. I know he scored a brilliant header, but I'm talking about with his feet, a few against Frankfurt, which you usually think he's going to gobble those up, and the one yesterday, which you thought he was going to gobble that up as well. Yeah,
skewed it wide. I mean, it's a good sign when we're talking about Kane's finishing's not been great, and he's got 8 goals.
Yeah,
eight goals in 8 games.
Absolutely.
7 goals in 8 games.
Absolutely.
Now this season, so that goes to show the levels he's at the moment. But yeah, there were a couple of moments he could have done better, to be honest. And I think was that 4 headers now? 5 headers this season?
I think it might be 5, but yeah, he's getting a lot with his head.
He scored against Wolves. He scored yesterday. So he's got quite a few headers already this season, which is, I think, one against Forest as well. So at least 4. But what I would say about the chance that he missed, which that would be disappointing, but he did so well to turn and get into that position, which was good. And it was nice to see. It was nice to see Son and Kane were linking up a few times as well yesterday. The only thing is, sometimes I felt like when it was just those two up front, there were occasions where they were a bit isolated, and that was a bit of a problem. I felt like sometimes the wing backs didn't support the attack enough in some occasions. But I think in general, Kane had a pretty good game again, and I think Son as well was looking threatening on the counter attack. I think as well he played okay, so I think Son maybe even was slightly better than Kane throughout the game. But I would say that it was good to see them two again linking up. And although Richarlison's been good since he's come, I don't know whether it helped not having his passing is always like going astray whenever it goes to him. It feels like that's something he needs to work on.
Yeah, and I felt he was frustrating when he came on, Richarlison. He really was. I mean, there was a couple of times where he lost the ball in really bad areas on the edge of our box. There was that one that you were talking about before when he got in a mix-up with I'm not sure who to blame, him or Sessegnon, but they both got in a bit of a mix-up. And there was another time, I think a few minutes before or a few minutes after, where he's just taking too much time on the ball in bad areas, which you can't really do at 1-0 up. You just can't do that.
Yeah, 100%. Especially so late in the game when you're holding on to a lead like that. It's criminal to make those kind of mistakes, and that's the frustration I have with Richarlison. Just a lack of care sometimes, a lack of precision in his passing. It kind of like I don't know what it is with him. I feel like he just kind of I don't know whether he's desperate to release the ball or he rushes things, but that composure. When you're finding a teammate or having maybe it's just an ability thing. I don't know what it is, but his passing is something that's been a constant source of frustration for me, and hopefully he improves.
Yesterday, I don't even think it was his passing. I think he was just taking too long on the ball to make the decision, which was frustrating. And to be fair, and I thought Sonny as well was a bit guilty of taking a bit too long on the ball at times when we were on counter-attacks, not quick enough to make his decision where we could have hurt Brighton. But let's move on to the wing-backs, because there's been a lot of good stuff said about them. Sessegnon was given man of the match by Sky Sports yesterday, and I thought defensively he did a really good job up against Solly March. I mean, there were a couple of times in that first half where he did get done by Solly March, but all in all, I think that he put in a really good display.
Yeah, apart from that mistake that late on, which nearly cost us, but
who do you put that down to? Did you put that down to Sessegnon, or did you put that down to Richarlison?
I have to watch it again, but didn't Sessegnon just pass it straight to Welbeck?
Yeah, I'm not sure, because I don't know if it was just a poor pass from Richarlison and Sessegnon couldn't really get there in time and got there a bit. I don't know. I don't know.
From what I remember, it was Sessegnon who passed it to Welbeck, but I have to watch it again. Anyway, I think in general he was pretty good. I mean, man of the match I thought was a bit of excessive, but I did think he put a good performance in. It was definitely a lot better than his performance against Leicester. Put in a really good cross, which Doherty had a half volley, which went just over the bar in the first half. That was a good moment for him. But other than that, I don't remember too many times. I remember a couple of occasions in the first half he was getting to the byline, but it wasn't as many times as maybe you'd want from a wing back.
But you know, like what we say about Conte teams, how the wing backs are like a partnership and they always link up, and we saw more of that yesterday. We saw in the early exchanges that one when Doherty fired it over the bar, that came from Sessegnon, and that one where Sessegnon was at the back post and Doherty, all he needed to do was dink it into the back post, and that probably would have been 1-0 to Spurs. And so you could see Sessegnon and Doherty really trying to forge that partnership yesterday, which we maybe don't see when maybe a Perisic and Emerson are on the pitch.
I think Perisic can do it, but Emerson, he doesn't.
Yeah, but it's a partnership, you know what I mean? You need both of them on the same wavelength.
Yeah, I think Emerson doesn't really. The problem with Emerson is his crossing isn't good enough to find his fellow falling wing back at the back post, and his finishing isn't good enough to finish a wing back the wing back's cross, and that's the problem when you have a wing back who isn't that great offensively like Emerson. I think Doherty coming in yesterday, I think obviously must have been difficult with all the talk about him not being ready and stuff, and being kind of forced into it because Emerson was forced off. I actually thought I was very surprised he didn't go with Perisic. I was surprised he went with Doherty, but I did look. Was it the Doherty of last season? No, but was it much better than what we've seen so far this season? Yes, he looked a lot fitter. He looked a lot sharper, and that was that one challenge near late in the game.
Right. What a challenge!
Which if he doesn't make that, could have very easily been 1-1. So
you saw Dyer's reaction to that challenge. He goes straight up to Doherty and gives him a massive hug, and it was a really important challenge. And what we've said about Doherty is he's all right going forward, but his defensive work needs a lot of work, and that challenge could pretty much saved the game, in my opinion. Yeah.
So that was really positive. Going forward, though, he had that chance at the back post with the half volley, which he put over. Again, not so many opportunities for him come to mind of him getting in the box, and
it was just those two moments, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was only a couple. So you know, when we're talking about Doherty of last season, he was really providing regular goal contributions and he was having lots of moments during games. So hopefully we'll get back to that. But what I would say is he definitely looked, in terms of his fitness and in terms of able to get up and down that right wing. Maybe he wasn't able to get up so much, but I think he wasn't a liability on that side, which maybe sometimes when he's being outpaced and stuff against his fellow wing back. I think he dealt with Estupinian pretty well throughout the game, and he had to go off in the end, didn't he, Estupinian? So I think it was a positive performance from Doherty. Still not his old self just yet, but like definitely in a step in the right direction.
Yeah, but you know, that's to be expected when you're out since March with an injury that he had at the age that he's at. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to be rusty when you come back, and I think that all circumstances, you know, thinking about all the circumstances, I think he put in a really good shift yesterday, Doherty, and I was really happy with him. So yeah, apart from that, I think, look, at the end of the day, I think every single player on that pitch put in a really big shift. It was a really emotional week for the club. You saw that on all the players' faces. You saw that with Antonio Conte in the press conference yesterday. You saw it from him on the sidelines yesterday. Conte was saying that he didn't need to, well, he didn't do any motivational talk with them yesterday. He let the players do it all for him, and they stood up like real men yesterday, and they got the job done. Under a big cloud of like a really devastating week for the club. So I'm really proud of the lads. I'm really proud of everyone connected with that performance yesterday. To go to the Amex, they haven't lost that there for 7 months since we beat them. Yeah. So you got
an easy place to go.
It's not at all, and that shows by their league position. Fourth, they were fourth in the league when we took them on. So you got to be really proud of the team, the way they conducted themselves yesterday and the way they fought and got that victory, and deservedly so, I think, as well. And De Zerbi's comments after the game, I think, were a bit over the top, to be honest.
Yeah. I think I can understand his frustration, because Brighton had some moments and they probably felt like they dominated the game possession-wise, like in the end. But I think from Tottenham's point of view, sort of professional away performance, away from home in the Premier League is never easy. And we got the goal. I think we had really good pressing structure implemented. We created some big moments, and we probably created the better chances, despite the fact that Brighton had more possession. We kept them at arm's length, and I think we'll feel like we deserved all 3 points the way we defended yesterday and the way we dug deep. So I think both sides can have the way they look at it, but we should be happy and proud with our display of getting all 3 points under the circumstances. And look, it keeps us in a very good way going forward, because it could have easily dropped points yesterday, and all of a sudden the start season not looking as good. But 6 wins, 2 draws, and a defeat after 9 games. Really good going. I'm very happy with that at the moment. So not much to complain about. Yeah, and I think 2 away performances as well in a row after Arsenal, where it was much improved.
Yeah, absolutely.
From the Arsenal game.
Absolutely. And I think that as much as it was a devastating week for Spurs, and it was tragic, absolutely tragic, what happened during the week, sometimes when stuff like this happens, can really forge a stronger bond between the group. And, you know, you saw Antonio Conte yesterday, what he was saying about the team, about how proud he is of the team and how much they stood up. So, look, it looks as though Ventrone is going to be looking down, and it's going to forge a stronger bond with the team.
Yeah, 100%. And should we take a quick look at the stats as well from the game? All right, I think it's been fixed now. So overall, you can see here, Brighton had more of the stats though. First half, you can see it was a bit more even, but Brighton 57% to Spurs 43%, but it was 8 shots to our 6. 3 shots on target each, with Brighton having 1 more shot off target. Shots inside the box was 4-2 in Brighton's favour, 4 shots each outside the box. But second half, it was a lot more dominant in Brighton's favour in the stats-wise, 61% to 39%, with Tottenham not having a shot on target in the whole second half. Brighton having 6 shots to Spurs' 2, no shots on target at all. And they had that 1 big chance. But they didn't really. They tested the keeper, only 1 shot on target throughout the game, throughout the second half. So despite having more shots, didn't really convert it into serious opportunities. If you're looking at the average positions from Tottenham's average positions, it's fairly interesting looking at Tottenham's average position, because obviously, look, Kane and Son are very central. That's what you expect. Bissouma Bissouma slightly behind Bentancur and Højbjerg, but those three very much clumped together. What I find interesting is the wing-backs. You know, when we play 3-4-3, usually you see the wing-backs very high up, near especially Perisic. You see him in a more of a left-wing position. But Sessegnon and, more important, Doherty being very, very deep this time around, not getting forward as much. And maybe it's because we had an extra midfielder in there. He didn't want, and we're not having the wingers maybe track back. He's maybe being a bit more conservative with the wing backs, which I find interesting, especially with someone like Doherty. You think he would be a lot further forward, but
you also got to take into account the fitness of Matt Doherty as well. So maybe they were just trying to protect him a little bit more as well.
Sessegnon as well is also behind the halfway line. So I got a feeling he was just being a bit more conservative with his wing backs than he has in previous games, which I find interesting. But it's almost as if, like, looking at the average position, it's like we had 4 fullbacks and 1 centre back in a way, because we had Sessegnon and Davies are pretty much touching, and so are Romero and Doherty. They're pretty much touching, with Dyer there by himself. So I thought that's quite interesting average position from Spurs yesterday, and not maybe as totally as you would expect it, with the wing backs being so deep. You see with Brighton, they're a bit more with the 3-4. Was more of a 3-5-2 as well. With Estupinian being more of a left wing back and Solly March being more of a forward, but maybe that's why they were pegged back, just because the average position of the Brighton wide players was a bit higher. They needed to stay back a bit. Maybe that's why it was. But fairly interesting, I think, there that tells the story of the game, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so that, I guess, anything else for you for the match review? That is our match review for the 1-0 win over Brighton at the Amex yesterday. A few super chats to get into. Just before we do a bit of a goal update in the Premier League.
Goal already.
West Ham are 1-0 down at the London Stadium. Andreas Pereira scoring for Fulham there. So 1-0 to Fulham. The other game going on is Crystal Palace Leeds, which is 0-0 at the moment. A super chat here from Apur Kumar, and he says, thought Davis was really good. Would you stick him in against Frankfurt, or Lenglet comes back in?
Davis. I agree. Davis was actually really good. What would I do? It's a good question. It's a very good question. I think I'll go with Lenglet. But I thought Davis did have a good return to the lineup after injury. I thought he was quite good in the last 10 minutes against Frankfurt on Wednesday. So
it's a good problem to have, isn't it?
Positive return, exactly. And I think, and it's no surprise that's also one of the positions where Conte seems most comfortable rotating as well. So either one, I'm not too bothered. But I think Lenglet at the moment is playing a bit better than Davis.
And then also one from Jaden saying, your audio is messed up, guys. Levy out.
Yeah,
he sends a Levy out. Super chat literally every day, but he's sent another super chat here, and he says, let's win a trophy for Gian this season. 100%.